Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I am very excited today because I will be talking to Laura from Couch Polyglot. She's a great person that I really admire and that has a lot of skills with languages. So I think it'll be very interesting to hear a bit more about what she has to say and what she thinks about language learning. We also did a video for her channel, so check that out below. And then this video is kind of a continuation of that. We're going to continue the conversation a little bit more and hear her thoughts on language learning, and in particular Spanish and Catalan, which are her native languages. So welcome, Laura. I'm very excited to have you here. Can you give us a quick introduction of who you are, what you do?
Yeah, hi Stephanie. Thanks for this beautiful introduction. I'm also very glad to be here. We had a super interesting conversation already, so yeah, it's exciting. And who am I? Well, I come from a town near Barcelona. I grew up bilingual with Catalan and Spanish, and I was always passionate about languages, but I didn't realize until later in life somehow. So yeah, and I speak several languages. I've been living in Germany for 10 years, so I kind of sometimes think in German, and it's weird. And yeah, I during the pandemic I was frustrated, so I wanted to have something kind of nice to do to distract myself from the news, and I started my YouTube channel. And yeah, it's a great hobby that I have now, and yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, that sounds great. Thank you for for starting it to begin with. I think it's great. I appreciate it a lot, and I'm sure that a lot of people out there also like it.
Cool.
So I wanted to ask you, what is your approach to language learning in general? And like, how do you approach it? What do you think about it? Like, what is your method? And, just how you go about learning a new language.
This has changed throughout the years, but I think I have always been a very auditive person, and also kind of input driven, but also something that interests me. So for instance, when I was growing up, I learned English by reading Harry Potter and by looking up the lyrics of the songs that I liked and felt an emotional connection to. So and watching movies and so on. And I don't like so much grammar practicing, but it really just depends on the language. Like for me right now, learning Italian or Swedish, because I have languages that are similar, I can really just focus on input like podcasts, watching videos, and I don't need to do so much deliberate grammar because my brain can figure it out from other languages that are similar. But when I was starting Russian, I actually did kind of a lot of theory, because I feel like if you don't have the basics, you cannot, start listening to podcasts in Russian. And if you don't understand anything, I feel like it doesn't make so much sense. But right now, I'm using for Russian, I have like roughly a B1, and I'm using, a lot of videos, and I'm practicing like my speaking, so I don't have to do so much grammar anymore. And also because that's why I also call my channel Couch Polyglot. I'm not obsessed with perfection. It's just about having fun and doing what you feel like doing and enjoying learning languages. So I make a lot of mistakes in Russian, but I don't care so much. So I rather spend an hour talking and make some grammar mistakes than spend, I don't know, 10 minutes, I don't know, learning grammar. I don't like it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. It's like you know what you like and you know what works for you, and you go for that. Yeah. So what do you think is the biggest determinant of success when it comes to language learning? What would you say that is for you?
Well, for me, it's passion. It's like I'm passion driven, and I'm a sensitive person, and I think emotions play a big role for me in learning languages. So I have to find music I connect to in an emotional level, kind of, and I can sing along. And repeating, I think, is an important part of language learning. But if you just repeat sentences like "Yesterday I went to the park," it's like Like, I don't care about that. But if it's like repeating a song I love, like I love, for instance, in Italian, I love Måneskin, so I will listen to their songs and sing along, and that I have this special kind of emotional connection to it. And or I don't know, like the podcasts I'm listening to for Swedish. Actually, I can recommend them. It's Let's Svenska med Oscar and Simple Swedish podcast. It's great because I know you're learning Swedish, so I love them
Yeah.
both. And I wouldn't say I have an emotional connection, like, but it's like listening to a friend. You know, it's not kind of cold. It's like, hey, how are you guys? You know, and it's like this emotional connection, I think, and that's what helps me. Yeah, I don't remember the question. I hope I answered it.
Oh yeah, no, you totally did. I completely agree. I think passion is like, it's such a big deal. It's for me also. And I really like how you mentioned music, because I feel like it can help so much, especially in languages that you really like the music. The same thing happened to me with Greek. It was actually the whole reason I started learning Greek was so I could understand the music that I love so much. And so it's like,
oh, nice.
Yeah, music is a big deal, because I think we also remember songs from 20 years ago. Just, it's crazy how much the brain remembers music. So yeah, thank you for mentioning that. So what I think, like from what I've heard, is you also place a lot of importance on input and getting a lot of that. But I'm sure that output is also important for you. And so I wanted to ask, what kind of output is your favorite? Like, what do you like to do the most? Do you speak? Do you write? Like, what is the one that you do the most in your language learning and that you think is the most effective?
Well, I think it's kind of the same. Like, the most effective thing will be the thing that you like the most. And I like speaking, but you don't always have a person to talk to. This is like a fact. Or I cannot, book a session every day. It would be too stressful. So I do a lot of self-talk. You were mentioning in the other video that you kind of not force, but you say, okay, and now I'm going to think in this language, right? And I personally feel this is difficult for me. Like, I will start thinking in that language and then it will switch back to German or to Catalan or whatever. So for me, if I'm like, now I'm going to speak in French, then it works. My brain's like, now we're speaking French. Okay, we're cool. But if it's just thinking, it doesn't work. So I'll do a lot of self-talk. Maybe when I'm in my car or I'm alone at home or something, I'll be doing the dishes and I'll just have a conversation with myself. I know it sounds odd, but I know a lot of polyglots do that.
I do too.
And it works for me. And
sorry to interrupt you.
We're not crazy. We're not crazy, It's not, you can do that. It works. And so that's my output. I think I only start writing in a very late stage of the language. Or maybe if I'm having some classes, I will have to kind of write as homework, but I don't really feel like it. Like, this is the last thing I do. Like, I start with input, like listening input. Then I will maybe read something. I'll try to speak. And then at some point when I'm maybe at the B2, I'll start writing. But it also depends on the language. I learned German in a very classical way at a school. And at a school, you will start writing from day one. So it always depends, and it's okay. You can do that.
Yeah. Funny that you mentioned like self-talk. I do a lot of that as well. It's like, that's why whenever I give this example of to people, you can describe your surroundings, you can do whatever, in like the beginning stages, simple things like that, and then you can start having other conversations. I think it's fine. I also think it's fine to talk to Siri and like let's do that. So I think it's certainly very helpful, but writing is like and not everybody likes to do a lot of it. So I also don't like it, but
I mean,
I think some people like it.
The thing is
that they feel like uncomfortable with speaking, and so then writing is like a better option for them. So
it might be. Like, I used to have a pen pal for French many years ago, and that also works. It's like a tandem, but in a written form. Or, there are chats you can use. But I don't know, for me, I like listening to also things that are interesting. And at the beginning, you cannot write about things that are interesting. You might only write, today I woke up
Yeah.
at 10. And I don't know, that's not interesting for me. But when you get to a higher level, you maybe can discuss about philosophy or whatever. And then you feel like writing because you have to, something to say as well.
You speak a lot of different languages, and I wanted to ask you if do you plan, like, what are your long-term plans? Like, how do you see yourself? Do you plan to keep learning new ones forever, or do you think like you
Mhm.
stop at some point and just switch to maintaining? And like, what do you plan to do?
I Well, it's a very good question. I would say I plan to kind of let it flow and do what I feel like doing, because I feel sometimes in the polyglot community there's kind of a pressure to be like, oh, you don't speak any
Yeah.
non-Indo-European languages. Oh, like, but I do what fits my life, because I feel like I would love, if I had a lot of time, I would love to learn Japanese. But I personally don't like the first stages. Like, I like the discovery stage of language learning, but because most of the time I'm learning languages that are similar to one another or that two languages I already speak. So I like that moment when I'm like, oh, I'm understanding a
Yeah.
lot, it's fancy. But I do think that for me, if I was to learn a very different language, I would like to start like very strong, be like dedicating a lot of time to it, like 3 hours a day for 2 months or something, so that I feel like I'm making progress fast. I like making fast progress because that motivates me. And if I would be, I don't know, saying simple sentences that I don't care about forever and learning a lot of grammar, which I don't like, I think I will be frustrated. And sometimes I think maybe I just want to learn those languages to prove myself to someone else or to, kind of feed my ego. But I don't think this makes sense, like we have limited time and I want to have fun with it. And I really, so that's why this idea about, chilling and couch
Yeah.
polyglot, like, hey, we're having fun with it, we're exploring. And I don't know, like, maybe someone thinks I'm not a polyglot because I don't speak, exotic languages. Well, that's their thing, I should focus on what feels right in my life right now. If I had a lot of time, I would love, for instance, to learn Japanese or maybe Greek. But right now, I like my method of dedicating at least 10 minutes a day to the language of my focus. Right now is Swedish. So I always listen to 10 minutes a day of Swedish and I'm making progress. But I speak German, it's very similar. So if I would dedicate 10 minutes a day to Japanese, I think I would be very frustrated. So it doesn't fit my life right now. And one thing that I love a lot is, I don't speak Portuguese, for instance, but I can understand it.
Yeah.
Or I don't speak Occitan, but I can understand it. And maybe at some point I will start actively learning new languages, but I will get accustomed to them so that I can understand them and I can consume input in them. Like, watching movies in Portuguese and things like that. So I don't know. So, like, to answer it shortly, I don't know. I don't have a plan. And I want to see what fits my life, because when I was trying, I did an experiment once. Well, I started to learn Portuguese and Swedish at the same time, and it got stressful and a little bit frustrating. And then I thought the whole point is to have fun. So everyone has different lives, and I do what kind of fits my life. And it would be exciting to learn a different language, like, for instance, Japanese. I've been to Japan before and I like it, so it would make sense because I do have this kind of emotional connection to it. But right now I'm missing the time I would like to invest in it. I wouldn't want to be a beginner forever. So no, for now I don't have kind of plans, but I have dreams of maybe one day learning Japanese or learning Portuguese. But it's like, we will see.
That makes so much sense. I think like a lot of the reasons, perhaps, why you've been so successful with languages, like I think I just heard them, right? Because you go by passion, you go with what fits your life, you go with what you want to do, as opposed to some external factors deciding for you. So I think that's wonderful, and it's a great advice for anybody interested in learning.
Yeah, thank you. I also have dropped languages in the past. Like I studied Dutch once, and then it was right before moving to Germany, and I felt like, yeah, Dutch is beautiful, and I would love to continue, but I wanted to integrate myself in Germany, so I wanted to focus on my German, and then I dropped it. So it happens, you know. It's just it's okay.
Yeah, for sure. Being flexible is important. And so, speaking of which, how do you maintain all the languages that you speak? Because currently, how many do you speak, by the way? Like, what was the number again?
Well, it's about what does it mean to
Yeah.
speak a language for me. If I can understand and communicate in that language, I would say I speak it. Like my Swedish might be an A2, so you could say, well, it doesn't count. It doesn't matter. Like I can communicate in worse or better ways in 8 languages, let's say. So my Swedish being the weakest one right now, for instance. And I do have the need to maintain my languages. I used to be able to speak French, and then I dropped it for several years, and I forgot it, to be honest. But when I got back to it, it came back pretty quickly. So it wasn't completely gone. It was just somewhere hidden, and it came back. But it was I needed to make an effort to have it back, you know. So I do need to maintain them, but I don't do like I don't know. It's not high maintenance. For instance, French. I used to work in French for several years. This really helped me, and now I'm not working in French almost. Like I sometimes will have a meeting in French, but it's like once in every 2 weeks or something. So I don't use it very actively right now, but I will listen to music in French. So that's my maintenance. So it's, or sometimes I follow a couple of French YouTubers, so I will watch their videos, but it's not, I don't have a plan behind it. So I just have a plan for Swedish right now. I listen to it every day, 10 minutes or more. And then there are languages, I don't know, Russian, I have 1 class per week. So I know I have this touch point every week. And sometimes I do more, but I don't have to, you know. So I try to have a touch point. I was doing the 10-minute thing for Italian last year. And when after a year, I finally like, well, now I've done it for a year. And then I decided to get a tandem. So I have a tandem for Italian. So I know I have a touch point every week. And I also like Italian music. So it's kind of like that, you know, I'm not practicing all my languages every day. I think it's difficult to do that. It's too stressful. And I'm always trying to balance out, not forgetting too much. I might forget a little, but also not getting too stressed out about it, because, you know, you're missing the point. If you're getting stressed about it, then it becomes, something you have to do and you get tired of it. So I don't.
I totally agree. And I love your stress-free approach. I think it just works well.
Yeah. Life is stressful enough, you know. So you shouldn't stress about your hobby, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah. Sorry for my voice, by the way. I hope you can guys understand me.
No worries. It's great. And I also wanted to ask you about whenever you kind of switch and you use different languages, do you feel like there's a change in personality for every language you speak? I feel like that's a very contentious topic within, you know, the polyglot community, and like people will say very different things depending on who you ask. So I was wondering like how you feel about it, and if you've noticed something like that.
I've noticed that in German. Like sometimes I do some videos, multilingual videos, and even some people pointed out, you look more serious when you're speaking German. And I was like, it's true, you know, but it's like a nuance. So it's not like I'm depressed when I speak German, but I might be a little bit maybe less like this, you know, less outgoing. Like I'll be like more, yeah, das passt schon, you know. So it's not in German. So I wouldn't say, oh, that was amazing. It's, you know, it's kind of a US thing to be, that was wonderful. I don't know. I have friends who will be like, oh, I love you. And I was like, I don't know. Yeah, you're my friend, but I don't know. Like it wouldn't come out of me naturally to even, you know, some of my colleagues, like they're not they're just meaning that they like me as a person, but they're like, oh, I love you so much. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And in German, you would say, ah ja, das passt schon, ist schon nicht schlecht oder so. You know, so it's kind of this attitude that's a little different. Like in English, everything's wonderful and amazing and awesome. And in German, it's maybe sometimes more like, ach ja, ja, war nicht schlecht, passt schon.
Yeah.
You know, this kind of, and I think this is maybe cultural and it's a nuance. It's not, I'm not a different person, but it does change a little. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I get it. It's, yeah, especially I feel like in English there can be a lot of exaggeration like that. Like you use very words that are super superlative and yeah. Whereas
Yeah.
in languages like German, or I think also the Slavic languages, you would like tone it down a lot. And
Yeah.
it's funny how it's different. I think there was this this quote, like for each language you speak, it's like an additional like life experience or something, something along those lines.
Yeah.
And I think that is true. That makes a lot of sense because you do experience the world through a different lens, almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's like that 100%.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you are from a town near Barcelona, and so I imagine you grew up bilingual, correct?
Yeah, well, I mean, my family and my friends, most of them I speak Catalan with. So let's say I grew up mostly in Catalan, but of course it's a bilingual environment, and I learned both to a native-like level. There might be things like some words about you use only at home that sometimes like, how do you say that? But yeah, so you could say I'm bilingual. Yeah, anyone would say that, I guess. Yeah.
So I was wondering, like, could you give us like a quick overview of like similarities and differences between Catalan and Spanish, and you know how you feel like they compare from a linguistic and a cultural point of view?
Yeah, I mean, people ask me this sometimes in Germany because I wouldn't say there's not much education. If you ask me, I don't know, what are the languages in some country far away, I don't know that, right? So I understand that people don't know so much about Catalan because it's kind of a political issue sometimes. You know, it's not a language of a country, let's say, if you don't count Andorra, right? So, and when people ask me, but is like Catalan really a different language? I'm like, look, are Spanish and Italian different languages? Yeah. Are they similar? Yeah, they are. And if you want to know the differences, a lot of people say, well, if you want to speak Catalan, that's kind of like a joke, but it sometimes works. So you just take the O out of the words. So you have plato, plat, campo, camp. You know that, or I had a friend who was like learning Italian and she spoke Spanish and Catalan, and she was like, you just have to mix both languages. So in Spanish you have the word horno, and in Catalan you have the word forn, and in Italian it's forno.
Yeah.
Right? So things like that. So this does help, or you know that you have these typical endings like canción, cançó, for instance, in Catalan. So there are words that are super different. There are words that are very similar. I think if you're a Spanish speaker and you're open-minded and you try to make an effort, you can learn Catalan pretty quickly, the same as you can learn Portuguese or Italian pretty quickly. I think it's a matter of wanting to learn it and being open to it. So it's another Romance language, and it also has an influence because it's like languages coexisting together. So, of course, there are things that actually are not correct in Catalan, but we say it because of the influence of Spanish. So we say like, for instance, if you are expressing obligation in Spanish, you say, tengo que ir al médico, no? I have to go to the doctor. But in Catalan, it would normally be, he d'anar al metge. But people sometimes say, tinc que anar al metge, like kind of, you know, copying Spanish, because it's, you know, these languages are in contact, so they kind of affect
Right.
each other. Yeah.
Yeah, I I also do that sometimes with Romance languages without wanting to. So it's yeah,
Mhm.
I get it. So can you give us like a
Yeah.
few interesting like, expressions or proverbs, sayings, whatever it is within Catalan and Spanish that that could be interesting for people to
Mhm.
hear, and yeah, just to
Yeah, and get kind of a feeling of how different they are. I mean, of course, I could choose expressions that are super similar, but I chose the ones I felt like, and they are maybe not so similar. So maybe it's interesting. There are expressions I like, and one of them is the mica mica sompla la pica. You know, they rhyme. The mica mica sompla la pica. It means drop by drop, you can fill the sink.
Oh.
And it's this idea of the Atomic Habits book I always recommend of, doing little by little, you can reach your goals. Oh, sorry, my table was moving. So I like that expression. So the mica mica sompla la pica. Yeah, in Spanish it would be something like poco a poco se llena el fregadero. No one says that. It's just an expression in Catalan. So I like that one.
I actually think that's very
Or
interesting because like you're saying like right, it doesn't exist in Spanish, but it exists in Bulgarian. It's like almost the same thing. Yeah. Yeah,
really?
but it's
Wow,
like
that's cool.
we don't use the word sink. We use like a word I can't translate right now. But it's like drop by drop.
Okay, no worries.
You get like a very big body of water that I just don't.
Like a bottle
it's like,
or whatever.
I don't know. I don't know what it is because it's like a word that I feel like doesn't have an exact translation. But yeah, anyways, yeah, very interesting how it's not in Spanish, but it exists in Bulgarian. That I did not expect that.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't either. So cool. Or in Spanish, I really like the expression "que me quiten lo bailao." I don't know if you've heard it before. So when, let's say you've had a great night out and I don't know, you were having a lot of fun, right? And then someone's like, oh, it was a lot of fun, but tomorrow we have to go back to work. And like, que me quiten lo bailao. Like, it doesn't have to be that you were dancing. Maybe you were traveling, you're doing something cool. And it means that nobody can take away your experiences that you've had already.
Oh.
So kind of like saying, well, whatever, like maybe it's something like YOLO or something. You only live once. I don't know. It's like, que me quiten lo bailao. Yes, I like this expression a lot.
Yeah, sounds cool.
Yeah. So nobody can take away your beautiful memories. Well, unless you lose your memory, but normally normally nobody can take that away from you. So I really like that expression.
It's a wonderful message.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing those. They were super interesting to hear. And I wanted to ask you, as a native speaker of those languages, what would be your tips and tricks to learn Spanish or Catalan or both?
Come to my channel. No, joking. I have lots of lessons in Catalan or Spanish, but I would say just follow your gut feeling. If you are more the reader type, then I don't know. For instance, I like assimil. You can read in Spanish on the left and it's English on the right, and some people like that. But I'm more. I don't do that very often. I prefer looking for resources that are more or less my level, maybe a little challenging. And if it's too challenging, you can activate subtitles. You were talking about the easy languages videos, and those are great, for instance. And so do what feels right for you. Don't stress too much, but if possible, try to have a daily routine. If you're busy like me, just do the 10 minutes thing, you know that you're gonna do 10 minutes a day, like listen to a podcast, watch a video, read something, and just you have these 10 minutes so you don't lose it. You're building up slowly but steadily, and if you have more time, then dedicate it to it. But I think having a daily touch point at the beginning really helps to improve, and not feel too stuck.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. And
Yeah.
yeah, please do check out the video that we also did on Laura's channel, in which we also go over some very interesting things about language learning, and then we also do a challenge, see if I can understand Catalan and if she can understand Bulgarian. So if you are interested to know more, check it out in the description. And thank you, Laura, for being on my channel, for giving me the opportunity to have this conversation.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, it's been wonderful. Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you, Stephanie.
Bye.
Bye-bye.